Welcome to Payoff Pitch, Action Network's MLB betting podcast. We are presented by BetMGM. I'm your host, Brendan Glasheen, joined today by a trio of Action Network baseball experts, Sean Zerillo, Charlie DiSturco, and Anthony DeBundo. All of your names just kind of roll off the tongue nicely as a group. Thankfully, we'll all be together quite a bit for the next several months. Today's episode, MLB season-long player props. We also have an episode coming out for MLB long shots. Yes, baseball is back this week. That means Payoff Pitch is back in full force. We have our episodes coming up this week, the ones I mentioned. We have our full opening day betting preview, which is coming out Wednesday. For Thursday's slate, Zerillo and DeBundo will break it all down. The pitching angles, lineups coming out, storylines to follow, the rule changes, all of it. They'll be breaking it all down extensively for a Wednesday release for Thursday opening day. And we are also very excited to share Payoff Pitch will have not 2, but 3 episodes per week, Monday, Tuesday, and Friday. Yeah, we're adding Mondays into the mix. A bunch of those baseball players take Mondays off on their schedule. We aren't. Monday, Tuesday, Friday throughout the entire season. You'll hear the 4 of us. BJ Cunningham's going to hop in as well, possibly others. It's a long summer, so I'm sure we'll hear from others throughout the course of the season. So that's exciting. 3 episodes a week, Monday, Tuesday, Friday, just breaking down baseball slates and getting you excited on maybe a slow summer day. You got Payoff Pitch to follow, so we look forward to that. Back to the task at hand. We're going to do player props on this episode of Payoff Pitch, and we figured, all right, to create some flow, we will do it draft style. So I'll go to Zerillo first, DeBundo second, and then DiSturco third. And if someone takes your prop, too bad. You got to go back on the clock, and you'll figure it out, hopefully. So without further ado, our Payoff Pitch player prop draft. Alliteration, baby. Zerillo, what first pick? You better. I know you're not the Zerillo inside jokes. The best bet is not your best bet. All bets are your best bets. So you got to choose carefully. It's the first one. So what do you got?
Yeah, I do have a favorite best bet for 2023 in terms of player props. I have twice as much on Juan Soto to win NL MVP as I have on any of my other player prop allocations. We'll get to the player I selected in the AL, who I have about as much risk across multiple props, but in terms of an individual prop, Soto is my favorite bet. It's come down from around plus 600 to plus 550. The reason why I love this, 2 years ago, I bet Juan Soto plus 850. The year before that, I bet him at plus 1200. But when he was plus 850 before the 2021 season, I said I would bet him every year. That was not true because I did not bet him last year at plus 300. Those odds were just way too short. But now that his odds have come back up closer to 5-1, I'm okay jumping in again relative to how he ranks compared to the field in the National League, which is much weaker than the field for AL MVP. I think Soto should run away with this award provided he stays healthy. His most significant competition on a per playing time basis is Fernando Tatis Jr., who's going to miss 20 games of suspension, likely has an injury every year as well that you have to factor in on top of that. Beyond that, the drop-off is pretty significant down to Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman in terms of average WAR as a function of playing time, which is how I sort of rank these fields out. So Soto, OPS ranking, WAR ranking, he is well above the field in the National League. I think you can justify him closer to that plus 300 where he was last season. So I'm happy to get him at around 5-1. I'd bet him down to around 4-1. So Juan Soto, NL MVP. I think this is the year he does it. Was super unlucky last season. Batting average on balls in play, injuries, vastly underachieved based on what he was expected to do and what he could have done with just a little bit of luck. So Soto MVP, easily my favorite player future bet for 2023.
And that correlates with your interest in the Padres.
Yes.
In futures, division, pennant, I think World Series too, if I remember correctly.
Yes, I actually prefer Padres pennant just because I have more on the Braves pennant and World Series. It also correlates to Soto MVP with Manny Machado RBI leader. Not a prop I'm going to talk about as one of my favorite bets, but I have Soto runs leader, Manny Machado RBI leader. So a couple other props too that sort of tie in with Soto MVP.
Oh, look at that. Machado, some insider knowledge on Zerillo's big board. That's behind his screen right now as he gives out the first pick. All right, DeBundo, you're up next. What do you got for a player prop for the 2023 season?
Yeah, I'm going to take Byron Buxton over 28.5 home runs. I think that the books are almost overvaluing now, or deflating the Buxton numbers because of potential injury risk. He hit 28 homers last year in 382 plate appearances. He hit 19 in 254 the year prior, which is right around the same pace. And if you project him out for even 400 at bats, he gets well over 28 and a half here, closer to 30. Some projected systems have him as high as 500. The bat has him at 500 with 29 homers. His barrel rate, hit a career high last year. He is DHing this year, which is the main reason that I'm extremely optimistic. And he had a career high fly ball rate last season. So I think there's clear indications that Buxton is trying to be more of a slugger, even if at the risk of his batting average. He's not stealing bases really anymore. So really, the two biggest risks to his injuries, are stuff like stolen bases and playing the field every day. The Twins made a concerted effort last year to almost load manage him. This year, they seem to be doing that by DHing him. They have, more outfield options to potentially play the outfield. So I'm going to take Buxton over 28.5 homers. I think this is just too much of a discount. It is the only player prop over that I have bet this season. And I just think that the market is just a little too down on Buxton, who, when on a per plate appearance basis, I know we talked about this on the Central Pod, Sean. I think you said you had him 6th in home runs per plate appearance. I would say he's right up there with the top guys in the American League.
Very good. Charlie DeSturco, you have a quick thought on this? You tend to agree with Dabundo on Buxton's prospects for the season?
Yeah, getting the 3rd pick in the draft, I lost Buxton here. I mean, just getting the Ohtani treatment and seeing as though Buxton stays healthy, this number is just way too low. I mean, when you look at his advanced metrics, 97th percentile in barrel rate, 96th in expected slugging, 93rd in hard hit rate. So when you put it all together, if Buxton even stays healthy for 100 games, he probably ends up going over this number at the rate that he's been performing and hitting as far as power goes. So I love this number as well. I'll probably be joining him, Dabundo, on him to lead the MLB in home runs too.
Yeah, I just want to comment that I didn't know you guys were going to be picking this coming into the podcast. I think that's a really creative way to play Buxton if you like him for this season, because playing DH, he's not going to rack up as much value as he would in center field. So in terms of an MVP bet, if he stays healthy for a full season, probably decreases his chances. But if he does stay healthy, over 28.5 home runs, I think that's a really sharp bet.
But even if he does miss, say, a month, I still like my bet. And the projection systems, like I said, the bat has him at 500 at bats. That's not even close to a full season. Full season's closer to like 650. So for him to be at 500, they're already slicing almost 20% of his numbers off and still putting him over. So unless it's a long-term injury, I love Buxton here.
As far as the way the Twins have built their lineup for the coming season, we know Correa is there. Joey Gallo. Does that help because there's less guys to pitch around? So in theory, Buxton would he can't necessarily work around Buxton, or does that hurt his case because maybe there's situations where, okay, we got to pitch around this guy? I'm just throwing out possibilities as to why there could be some the injuries, number one, no question. But is there anything about the Twins lineup that might make you feel, okay, yeah, I like this even more because there are too many pieces now where you can't pitch around as many guys? Yeah,
I mean, they have a pretty deep lineup of, they don't have a lot of stars other than Correa, but they have a lot of like above average guys, like people who you could project. And they went and got Michael Taylor, which I think is a clear sign that they're going to prioritize, him in center field and try to keep their best hitter healthy by, not playing him in the field. So Taylor is in the projected lineup. Trevor Larnach, Max Kepler, like solid above average hitters. Jose Miranda, people like above average guys. So I think there's enough depth in this lineup to the point where they were trading away hitters like Arise for pitchers. And even we'll see what we get from Alex Kirilloff. Like, they have pieces and depth. So I think they're going to be fine.
All right. Fangraphs has them at 33 for their projection for the season, home run projection. We're going to do snake style. I should have said that from the top. So we'll go back to Charlie DeSturco. He can get the first pick of the second round of the player prop payoff pitch player prop draft.
Yes. Well, the Buxton one doesn't count as my official pick in the first round. My official pick in the first round is going to be Ohtani.
Go ahead.
Yes. Ohtani more home runs than Fernando Tatis. It's about -120 right now. I mean, this is my way, and we'll see this in the wraparound. Just Fernando Tatis Jr., I feel like the market's overvaluing as far as his home run numbers right now. Ohtani is in the top 2% of hitters in max exit velocity, expected slugging, barrel rate, just about every single metric you want as a hitter. He's up there with the best of them, and he's DHing, as we talked about with Buxton. So when it comes to injuries, it's not a concern. It's more so with the pitching side of things where he could come up and an injury could arise. But, when he matches up against Tatis, I like this matchup here. Fernando Tatis is suspended already for the first 20 games of the season. So he's already starting with a 20-game disadvantage. So he's going to have to come back from shoulder surgery, not playing since October 3rd, 2021, wrist injury. And now we're expecting him to compete with one of the best hitters in baseball. I think that this number is way too much of a disgrace toward Ohtani. Like, I don't think that they're respecting him in the market as much. He had 34 home runs last year. And, the number, I just think the number is too low here. And I would bet this number probably like minus 150 range. And then on my wraparound, it's the pairing with Fernando Tatis Jr. under 33.5 home runs. And I mean, I just going a little bit, continuing off this, if he misses those 20 games and stays healthy the entire way, he still needs a home run just about every 4 games. And already Zerillo talked about a little bit briefly with Soto, where you're kind of baking in possibly an injury from Fernando Tatis. We've seen him miss games every single season. We've seen his lack of just smarts at times with motorcycle accidents and stuff like that. So you're expecting this guy to come in after not playing a game in a year and a half and expect him to hit 34 plus home runs. I think that's a very high number. And maybe at his ceiling, that's like where he's going to be, in that like 35 range. But I'm going to buy the under here, take under 33.5 home run. I think, if you're betting this, there's always value in taking unders on players, and you're already getting him at a 20-game discount. And it's just a lot to expect from him entering this season.
DeBundo, we'll go back to you and then work our way back through Zerillo. And I think folks will get the drill. What do you have for us, your second player prop that you're eyeing?
I know that the other 2 people I'm on this show with are very big fans of this player. And I think a lot of people are, and for good reason. I mean, he's awesome. But I am a little bit worried about Julio Rodriguez health-wise. The back issue kept flaring up last year. We saw his stolen base attempts go down considerably. I'm going to take Julio Rodriguez under 29.5 home runs, and you can find that at BetMGM. The slug numbers were impressive last year. He finished with a 509 slug, in his barrel rate was really good. He hit 28 homers and 560 plate appearances. I think you're just paying a premium here at 29.5 now. This was as high as 30.5. It's come down. This is really important to shop around, because if you look other books, you'll find 28, 26. So at 29.5, the bat projects him right at 28, bat X 26, which takes into account some more StatCast data, and ATC's at 29. So the 3 systems that I like the most are all under on him. And I think that's with 634 plate appearances for Julio. I think he could do that, but that's almost near the max amount of playing time that you're going to expect from him. So I think you're paying a premium on the guy who just won Rookie of the Year and who is going top 5 in fantasy drafts and who is the next budding star of the league. And I like betting against the hype and betting against what a guy did last year as a rookie in a breakout year. So I'm gonna go under on Julio Rodriguez.
And I guess there should be some confidence in the rest of their lineup too. So they could manage him possibly. But then again, if we think the Angels are improved, the Astros are the Astros, they're asking a lot of Julio Rodriguez for this coming season. Sean Zerillo, back to you. Another player prop for us.
J-Rod's kind of a funny one, because I actually have a most home runs bet on him. And he's a guy who, based on StatCast metrics, you could justify for a home run leader bet, but you could also on projections justify betting the under on his home run total. So just kind of like the range of outcomes on him is so wide. I get back-to-back picks here. So I'm going to go with a couple prop bets. We'll go with Mookie Betts as the runs scored leader for baseball. Since 2018, he leads baseball in runs scored by a wide margin. For the 2023 season, I have him projected for 104 runs, tied atop the league with Ronald Acuna and Freddie Freeman. But in terms of runs scored per plate appearance, Betts and Acuna are the top 2 guys. Just slight margin ahead of the rest of the pack. Judge, Soto there as well. But looking for the odds of all of the players I've mentioned, except for Freeman, Mookie Betts is much higher than the favorites. Judge 8-1, Soto 6-1, Mookie being 11-1 doesn't really make sense to me. He should be, if not the co-favorite, the outright favorite at around 6-1, tied with Soto. So Mookie Betts 11-1, pretty easy bet for me to make here, just based off of projections. Never mind the fact that he is just the overall run scored leader in baseball by about 30 runs over the past 5 seasons. So Betts runs leader, one of my favorite prop bets, in addition to Luis Arraez to be the hits leader. Last year with the Twins, Arraez was not in the starting lineup for the first few weeks of the season. They have a lot of hitting depth. They were able to platoon him occasionally against lefties. He also got banged up at one point, I believe, too. The Marlins are going to put him in the lineup every single day. He had that 2 home run game in the World Baseball Classic, which is surprising because he's not a power guy, but I also saw him line a bunch of doubles off of that tall right field wall in Minnesota last season. I know Marlins Park is not by any means a hitter's park, but in that big outfield, I think Arraez might hit 60 doubles this season. This guy is going to rack up base hits in that big outfield, especially without being able to shift him in the infield too. In terms of how I project these guys out, again, hits as a component of overall playing time. The top tier is Trey Turner, Tim Anderson, Luis Arraez. Below that is Freddie Freeman, Bo Bichette, Vlad Guerrero. There's a slight drop-off in terms of the average number of hits per plate appearance that I project guys for. But Arraez is the most upside relative to all those players, given his odds and given the playing time projection he's actually getting. He's sort of underrated relative to the group he's around. So Luis Arraez, around 22-1 as the hits leader. Mookie Betts, 11-1 as the run scored leader. My picks at the 2-3 turn here.
Finally, some spark with the Marlins outside of their wonderful starting pitcher in Sandy Alcantara. You can now keep your eyes on their leadoff man, Luis Arraez. Most hits. DeBundo, 3rd round selection.
I'm going to go with Nick Lodolo, under 177.5 strikeouts at BetMGM. Shop around as well for these, of course, because 1 or 2 strikeouts could make the difference come the end of the season. I am worried about workload for the Reds' young starters, whether it's Ashcraft, Green, and Lodolo. And Lodolo specifically has never pitched more than 120 innings in a full season. He's a young guy, like Hunter Green. The Reds are not going to be very good. They're not going to be in contention when September rolls around. And I am skeptical that they are going to push all 3 of them as far as maybe they could go, because they're worried about over fatiguing them and overworking them in meaningless innings. So I think that there's a cap really on how high Nick Lodolo can go this year. That's if he stays completely healthy as well, which he does have an elevated injury risk, according to some projections. So for Lodolo, I can't see him throwing more than 140-45 innings this year. And thus at 177, he would need to have an extremely high strikeout rate. Even if he matched last year's, he would come in right around that number. His stuff plus is down this year, according to Eno Sarris's model in spring training. It's early, but there are some concerning signs for him with his stuff number. And if it's a little bit lower and he strikes out a little bit fewer batters, he's going to come in under 177.5. Even if he's tracking for it, the Reds could just shut him down and it's a win. So I have a lot of downside risk here, whether it's injuries, whether it's getting shut down, whether it's a lower strikeout rate on Lodolo. So I'm going to go under 177.5.
He's been shut down multiple times. Last year was the back, and then you go back to his time in the minors. He was also shut down, innings limit. He was with Class A Dayton in the Reds organization and had some problems as well as their second-rated prospect. Fangraphs has him over at 189 strikeouts. Is he? Yeah,
What's the inning number on that 189 though? That's the question.
Pardon me, yeah, because you had strikeouts, right? Not innings. You had strikeouts.
Yeah, strikeouts.
Strikeout number 189, inning 160.
Yeah, I would bet a hard under on 160, given that he's never thrown more than 120 in a year.
Okay, very good. On to Charlie DiSturco. You got the next 2.
Yes. So Zerillo was hyping up a Miami Marlin. I'm going to be taking an under on one of them, and it's actually Sandy Alcantara, under 196 and a half strikeouts. This number is extremely high for a pitcher that I'm looking to fade this year. He's coming off the Cy Young season that everybody cashed on. Of course, that's going to lead to an inflation in his numbers across the board. You look at just how he is as a strikeout pitcher. He's as dominant as he is, as successful as he is pitching late into games, keeping the score 1 or 2 runs. He's just in the 53rd percentile in strikeout rate, under a quarter of a time. So his strikeout numbers are not extremely high or eye-popping, where if he gets to that like 180 to 190 inning mark, he's going to go over this number. Actually, last year for an entire season, 228 innings, only 207 strikeouts. The year before that, he also went over, but that's 2 years of complete full health in the low 200s. This number is in the mid 190s, just about, 10 less than what he's kind of at his peak. And that's saying that he doesn't miss a start or two, doesn't pitch into the 7th, 8th, 9th inning every single time, which we saw him do last year in the Cy Young season. There are some advanced metrics where, they're a little bit, hard hit rate is a little bit of a concern at times. So when it comes to Sandy, like there might be earlier starts this time around. Maybe he regresses. There's always value in taking unders on pitchers, and a number near 200 for not a strikeout pitcher, I think is a little bit too high. The bat is actually in the mid 180s on him, and that's like where I stand. So I'm taking his under as my next pick. And then for my wraparound snake draft, I'm going to take Michael Harris, under 153 and a half hits, fading another player coming off an award-winning season. Michael Harris, the NL Rookie of the Year. 153 and a half hits is a lot of hits. Only 31 players did it last season. And while Michael Harris had an incredible rookie year, 123 hits in 114 games and a near 300 average, his BABIP was 361, which is pretty unsustainable. Only 3 players had higher BABIP than he did: Goldschmidt, Nate Lowe, and Xander Bogaerts. And he's in the bottom 7% in chase rate. So he's swinging a lot. And I'm just looking to fade him going into that sophomore season slump. 153 and a half hits is just a ton of hits to get. And of course, these are all projecting for if they fully stay healthy. Who knows with an injury bug or anything that comes up, or if he misses a couple weeks. I don't think that we're going to see him get 150 hits in 25 games if you expand that 114, 123 that he had last season. So taking 2 unders here on 2 award winners, fading them just for a small regression on their season.
And though, like the Alcantara one, what pops to my head too, and we talked about Zerillo with the Padres and taking a guy like Soto for MVP. I would imagine too, like Marlins, there's no juice on the Marlins win total under, right? And that would be, if there's an edge taking a Marlins under, if you got a better number before, but they're at 76 and a half now, that's in a way fading Alcantara to be out there as often as he can. That he's a big part of them winning baseball games, at least the games he starts.
Yeah, but so, I think Miami's like getting they improved. They took the necessary steps in the offseason to get better. I actually am on their over, which is funny enough, but I just think that like Sandy Alcantara, if he pitches 28, 30 games, which like he still probably doesn't even get to that 196 and a half mark, especially given that his strikeout rate is below 9. Like he doesn't get a strikeout every inning. It's a little bit under that 9 mark. So you're saying even if he gets 200 innings pitched, he's probably under 196 and a half. Like, so I just think it's such a hefty number for a pitcher that's coming off an award-winning season where everyone's going to be looking to bet, on him again or his overs, or look at him as like he's the best. He's one of the best pitchers in baseball. I just think that it's just a little bit of an inflation when it comes to his market.
The biggest question is whether Skip Shoemaker can pull him from the game successfully, or whether Sandy will make him go back into the dugout and keep pitching. Because Don was unable to pull him, but I think maybe the rookie manager can get bullied into letting Sandy throw extra innings. We'll see.
This is true. All right, Tabundo, why don't you take it? Let's go.
All right, my next pick, Esteury Ruiz, 75-1, American League Rookie of the Year. Look, I mean, the minor league batted ball data was horrendous on Esteury. Somebody told me it was as low as 17% hard hit rate, but we have spring training data on him, and as recently as Monday night, he hit a ball 109.2 miles per hour. He hit a nuke homer off of Ross Stripling. He hit a ball 100 miles an hour earlier in spring training this year. He's been hitting the ball harder. When you combine that with his plus hit tool and his ridiculous speed, you get a guy who could steal 50, 55 bases. And I think the wow factor on a pretty terrible Oakland team could make this really interesting. As somebody who, it's going to be a very terrible team, one of the worst in the entire league. But Ruiz is an electric prospect. He could hit, like I said, if his contact quality improves, he could hit 260, 270 and steal 50, 55, maybe 60 bags. That's an exciting prospect and somebody who's going to add a ton of value. And they cut Christian Pache, which means that I think Ruiz is going to start every day. So at 75-1, I mean, some of the guys he's lined next to is crazy. People who are not on major league rosters, who will not be on major league rosters until the summer. Ruiz is on opening day. He's going to play almost every day, and he's going to steal bases, and his contact quality is improving. So that's enough for me to take a shot. 75-1.
Okay, back to Sean Zerillo. We'll speed it up here. They bring out the assistant commissioner and they speed up the draft. We'll whip through some of the rest of these. So Zerillo, I can maybe grab somebody. Maybe my cat can come in or something. But anywho, Zerillo, you've got 2 in a row. You're muted, pal. Zerillo, you're muted. All good.
Sorry about that. 3, 2, 1. Yes, I think most people get the logic with how I'm going about betting these player prop categories at this point. Max Fried, my projected wins leader at 15 wins, tied with Garrett Cole. Odds are 25-1. There's several pitchers shorter than him. Pretty simple bet there. Team with the most projected wins. Fried, most projected starts on that team. Very simple. In terms of my next pick, it's kind of a player bet, not only on Yordan Alvarez to win MVP, which would be the bet I'm going to give out here because he's my MVP pick. But Yordan Alvarez is the player I have the most invested in across multiple props markets. Runs leader, home run leader, RBI leader. Didn't pick up a bat for a long time in spring training. Look at the StatCast metrics. As good as any hitter in baseball. Obviously, the gargantuan home runs in the postseason going to help the hype. But I think Yordan Alvarez still kind of overlooked in terms of his StatCast metrics as a hitter relative to the rest of the league, because this guy is an absolute freak show and potentially one of the best hitters we've ever seen. I do not say that lightly, but in terms of where he is at relative to his age, I would expect him to kind of copy Judge's season from last year at some point down the line. He's not going to be playing center field, gets left field DH at bats, but you get somewhere close to what Aaron Judge did in 2022, you're going to be in the MVP consideration regardless. Ohtani is so far ahead of the pack for MVP. You need to put up a historic season like Alvarez did, or like Judge did last year. I think Alvarez is capable of doing that, not only for 1 year, but multiple years throughout his career. So betting him at a variety of markets, only have about 3/4 of a unit risked on Yordan across 4 bets. So if he gets hurt, misses time, it's not going to crater our bottom line, but if he wins the Triple Crown, we're going to win over 10 units. So Yordan Alvarez, variety of markets, my favorite player to bet in multiple markets for 2023.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I get the sense too, we've talked about this a ton leading up to opening day, which is Thursday in the preseason spring training. Players that are on really good teams are going to benefit also from playing their division. In some cases, not all cases, but playing their division less, right? So if I would imagine Alvarez could be a guy who could benefit, right? Zerillo, if he's got more, like they're going to have just more games against National League opponents that might not be as stacked up from a pitching standpoint.
Or the Royals pitching, the Tigers pitching without, as we've talked about, the Tigers without 2 of their best starters this season. So yeah, more at bats against the dregs of the AL Central potentially going to help you, but I don't know how that, factors into familiarity with pitchers. Like there's a give and a take with that sort of thing too, with not seeing pitchers as frequently. I don't know if that helps the batter or the pitcher in this scenario. So yeah, tough to actually put a physical number on that, but in terms of his talent level, I don't think Yordan is being fairly judged in the odds markets.
Okay, Jabundo, back to you for your 5th player prop.
Well, most books
Well,
are
this
not
one's
offering
different.
most books are not offering props on Oakland Athletics pitchers, but I'm buying this staff and I'm selling the Nationals staff. So I'm going to take a fun team prop. I'm going to cheat. I'm going to take A's to have more wins than the Nationals. Ken Waldichuk stuff looks really impressive. Fujinami coming over from Japan stuff looks really good. Question is, can he command it? I'm impressed by some of the numbers we've seen from him. He did get rocked a couple times in spring training, but the stuff is much better than anything the Nationals have. And so I think from a projecting point of view, I bet the Nationals win total under 59.5, and I like A's to have more wins than the Nationals. So I ran out of player props. I'm going to take a team prop here, but really it's mostly because you couldn't find strikeouts on some of these younger, less proven arms for Oakland.
All right, so DeBundo's draft room can close her down and head back to the clubhouse and crack one, I guess. Sturko, you've got a couple for us before we go?
Yeah, I'll be quick here. We took a lot of unders to start. I'm going to go with a couple overs. Mookie Betts over 28.5 home runs. Kind of goes hand in hand with Sean's Mookie runs scored. He had 35 home runs last year. Look at his projections for just about any of them. ATC, Steamer, Zips, the Bat, they all have over this number. You're seeing Mookie Betts and his power numbers just increase year over year. His barrel rate's improved 2% over the last year. His hard hit rate is the highest since before COVID. So now that he's in this Dodgers lineup, obviously I like the runs prop as well. I think that he is going to be in that MVP race. I think it might be a two-legged race by the end of it between Betts and Soto. So, and then last year in 2021, or 2 years ago in 2021, he had just 23 in 122 games. So 4-6 to the over of 28.5 since 2016, not counting the COVID year. Like him to go over this in this one. And then another over, Vlad Guerrero Jr. over 33.5 home runs. I'm buying 2 years ago what we saw from him from a numbers perspective. He was just short last year of this mark. I mean, you look at just how his numbers perform, 94% hard hit rate, 99% max exit velocity. The fences have been brought in Rogers Center. So what was already a hitter-friendly park is now going to be more hitter-friendly, a 7% bump in home runs projected when you look at what the bringing in the fences as far as from a feet perspective does. He had 32 last year, and 48 the year before. So buying his upside, and that 32 came with 3 home runs and a 217 average in May. I talked about it on our AL East podcast. So taking 2 overs to end it, quick and easy.
Mookie Betts hit a ball last week that was harder than a ball he's hit in the last 3 years. He did some weighted bats. Could be pretty notable.
If you're staying in that hotel at Rogers Center, caution, Vlad Guerrero might break a window with the change in the ballpark's dimensions. Okay, since Cirillo's been awesome putting together his, I'm just coming up with the reason on the fly because Cirillo's got 2 more and he's going to have 1 more pick than each of us. Just say Cirillo's big projections, win total projections. He's got player projections as well up on actionnetwork.com. We'll give Cirillo a compensatory pick. So he's got his 6th and 7th props, and then we'll get out of here.
Yeah, so I've got my awards piece coming out today, the same day that you will get this podcast in your podcast feed. So check that out on actionnetwork.com. We'll wrap it up with a few awards bets here. So Anthony Volpe at 25-1 earlier in spring training was my favorite awards bet because when I projected out production as a component of playing time, he ranked right up there with Gunnar Henderson. He was just projected for half the at-bats as Henderson. But now that he's won an opening day job, they basically have the same WAR projection, 3.5, 3.4. A few projection systems have updated their numbers since Volpe won the job, and all of them have him between 3 and 3.5 wins this season. He's very much in the conversation. His odds have shrunk dramatically from about 25-1 to 18-1, now down to plus 650, but he's still a clear second choice behind Henderson. So if you want to bet Volpe down to 5-1, I think that's perfectly fine. He is just as good of a player as Gunnar Henderson, and now he's projected to match Henderson in terms of playing time. And he may even go up because there's a chance he gets bumped to the number 1 spot in the lineup. It's a better lineup than what the Orioles have. They should score more runs. Even though the Orioles should be good this season, the Yankees still project for more runs. So Volpe, I think, just has an equivalent path to winning the Rookie of the Year as Gunnar Henderson does. The odds should be matched essentially going into the season. They're not quite there yet. I expect they might get there in the next few days. And then lastly, my AL Cy Young position. I've had a bunch of pitchers who I bet for this award get hurt. My 2 favorite bets by far are Christian Javier and Shohei Ohtani. Ohtani actually projects to lead the American League in pitching WAR. And I think Ohtani at 12-1 for Cy Young is a better bet than Ohtani for MVP at around plus 220. Ohtani also ranked second in expected ERA last season, so completely legitimate in terms of his skill set. He might have been third, actually, but top three very clearly. Christian Javier, a guy I knew I was going to be betting for Cy Young towards the end of last year. Again, another guy who ranks in the top 4 per expected ERA, top 4 per strikeout rate over the second half of last season. Christian Javier not getting quite enough respect as an ace in this league yet. I think he will get that this season when he contends for a Cy Young award. So Javier, Cy Young, strikeout leader. Ohtani, Cy Young, certainly a few of my favorite prop bets. I have a number on my card, but that's how we'll round it out for today. Jordan Walker, NL MVP or NL Rookie of the Year, I just want to mention because I liked him just as much as Volpe at the start of spring training. His odds have plummeted to 4-1. And based on the projection, I can't really justify him as a co-favorite. So Volpe, of the 2 rookies of the year who have dropped dramatically, clearly has the better odds.
And I'm fascinated by your Cy Young picks there because I know you both, or a few of you on this podcast, are high on the Angels to be better. Their lineup's better. Ohtani in that lineup included. So the Angels being better should help his case. If the Angels are a winning product, I think that just boosts him from a narrative perspective. And then the other narrative for the Astros, they may be worse. I put worse in air quotes because I think they're still pretty good. Javier to own that rotation, never mind a chance to own the league, the American League as a starting pitcher, but having no Verlander, just that, that breadth of Verlander in that rotation should set up well if he takes advantage. So
I just want to mention one more point about Ohtani because the Angels do have a 6-man rotation. So it's hard for him to get more than 28, 29 starts. But even at that level, he had a line that justified being in the Cy Young discussion last season. So as long as he doesn't miss time as a pitcher, he'll be there. But if he misses 1 or 2 starts, it could really hurt him.
Excellent. All right, gents, good job. That's the payoff pitch player prop draft for you. You should follow all of these guys: Sean Zerillo, Anthony DeBundo, Charlie DiSturco in the Action app because there was a lot there. Plenty of action on this pod, which was excellent. But be sure to follow the guys in the app individually. They will have these player props logged to follow along. A reminder that we have payoff pitch coming your way. We'll start this coming Friday with opening day Thursday, and we'll be regular 3 days a week: Friday, Monday, Tuesday, Friday, so on and so forth. Thanks for listening. Please rate, review, and subscribe. Payoff pitch. We are presented by BetMGM. Be on the lookout for our long shots episode as we lead up to opening day. Thanks for listening, everybody.